Hey guys, Dadtries, and this is Last Epoch. I know it has been a hot minute since I've released a review, and the reason being is because I've been playing Last Epoch. There's also been some other things. It's summer, I'm coaching T-ball, and that wrapped up. It's a big deal, okay? All right, we take our T-ball very seriously in this house. That's all done, so I've got a little bit more time to myself now, but Last Epoch has been a ride. I was holding off on Last Epoch because I was a little skeptical of it. It looked, at first, a little cheesy, and then I was also kind of waiting for a sale, and that sale came around, so I actually picked up the game for $28. Regular price is $35. At the time of recording, I have 30 hours into the game, and I was trying really hard to get to some of the end game content before I released a review, but I decided, I have reached that threshold where I've gotten my dollar per hour that I try to get out of games, so I guess it's fair to give it a review at this point. Just keep in mind, I haven't reached the end game loop yet, so I really haven't gotten to some of the more advanced dungeons. I don't even have any of the high tier loot items on my character yet, and I'm at 30 hours. So from a dollar per hour perspective, you're gonna play at least 35 hours before you get to the end game. And it's not like I've been branching out and playing a bunch of alternate characters. I've pretty much stuck with this Acolyte Necromancer build from the time I installed the game. And actually, let me go back and preface with the fact that I'm not following a build that I found online. I have no idea what the current meta is of the game. I'm just playing. I'm just putting stats where I think it'll work and respecking. I have respec a couple times, which that's a big plus for the game. You can respec. It takes you a little while to build your skills back up, so you can pick different skills to specialize. I'll wrap around to that, but I do like that it gives you the ability to say, that kind of sucked. Let me go back and explore a different path. It does put you back a little bit time-wise, but it doesn't ruin your build like it did in the vanilla versions of some other ARPGs. Which kind of brings me to the point where, I am a huge Diablo 2 fan, and all I wanted out of Diablo 3 when it came out was a true to its origins game, and that's just not what we got. And then Diablo 4 came out, and in my opinion, the series has just gone downhill. I haven't been happy with the Diablo series really since the Lord of Destruction. I do have a ton of time into the Diablo 2 Resurrected version. I think that's great. I think they've made it a little more casual for some of us, because in Diablo 2, really, if you're not playing a super meta build, you're just not going to be successful. You had to just build specific characters to do specific things. If you wanted to do Ubers, you were building a smiter, and you needed XYZ gear. You needed your grief, you needed your fortitude, and it had to be certain tiers. And if you didn't have those things, you just weren't going to be successful. Same with a Magic Find Sork, or if you were going to do a Horker Barb. This game, so far, it doesn't seem like that. It seems like you can pretty much do anything you want and be successful. Now, to Blizzard's credit, with Diablo 2 Resurrected, they've actually added quite a few items that really tore apart some of the meta builds, and just about everything is viable now, which is really neat. It's really rebirthed that game, so Diablo 2 will forever hold a special place in my heart. I don't think the changes in the Resurrected version have broken that game. If anything, I think it's made it a little bit more fun, a little more casual to my speed, but I'm sure there are others who think that I am preaching pure blasphemy here. But anyways, back to Epoch. And the reason why I was even talking about Diablo is because this game has a lot of tips to the hat of Diablo. They took a lot of systems that were in Diablo 2 and a lot of the progression that was in Diablo 2 and kind of revamped them and put them into this. So, like the idols in your inventory, for example, those are pretty much charms. They're just charms with dedicated slots. And then everything else, the inventory looks very similar. Belts and sashes take up 2 slots. You have your offhand weapons. You have your armor that takes up a certain amount of slots. Your helmet takes up 4 slots. Jewelry's 1. Boots are 4. It's just so very, very obvious that this game drew so much inspiration from Diablo 2. And it's not like they're even trying to hide that. There's an enemy in the game. It's called the Jaw-ith Bear. and it teleports, and it has the Jaw, Ith, and Bear runes inscribed onto its side, and they glow. I mean, it's an obvious tip of the hat. It's an obvious Easter egg. And I think that's a good thing. I'm really enjoying the game. There's a lot here. There's a lot to be discovered. Though the one real downside, I guess, to the game is that the story and the plot hook is forgettable. And when I say forgettable, I mean this is the game I've been playing most recently. And aside from getting these shards and making the last epoch that I'm carrying around, I really have no idea. I don't know about the factions. I don't know about the different areas on the map. I understand I'm traveling between time, but I don't really know why. And maybe that's my fault as the gamer, but also at the same time, it's not memorable. The characters don't really talk to you a lot of times. A lot of the story you're just reading. And again, that's okay, but I mean, I'm lazy, man. If you're going to make me read this stuff, I'm not going to do a good job. I want to be immersed into the story, and I want to be watching a nice cinematic, and I want the voice actors to be telling me what's going on. I mean, this is a $35 game. Put some voice acting into it, and put some better voice acting into it too, because from what I have heard so far, it's not fantastic. Ask me a character's name, I couldn't tell you. I could not give you a major NPC's name because they haven't given me a reason to care. But what it lacks in storytelling and overall story, it really does make up for in gameplay and customizability, because your character can really be whatever you want them to be. And if you're coming to this game without doing any research like myself and just diving in and saying, I'm going to play a necromancer, you would kind of assume that as the necromancer, you're going to summon skeletons and golems and other stuff, and you're just going to kind of follow them around and really don't have to play the game. That is an option, but there are so many other ways to play the necromancer as well. For instance, I'm kind of trying my hand at this build where I summon some skeletal mages and also some skeletal warriors. The skeletal warriors instinctively will go to run up to do melee combat. Unknowingly to them, my skeletal mages are set to cast essentially a corpse explosion on them. So once they're engaged in battle, my mages blow them up. It does a truckload of damage, and I summon more skeletons. I also have a perk where every time one of my summoners dies, I get to recap some of that mana. I want to say I'm at 15 mana every time one of my skeletons dies, and I can also summon 2 skeletons at a time. So really, I'm just summoning an endless wave of kamikaze skeletons courtesy of my skeletal mages, which is just an interesting way, a different twist on how you can be successful with each character. The individual skills that you modify, I mean, you start off with, say, a fireball, and it ends up being the equivalent of a frozen orb from Diablo 2. I mean, there's a lot of customization there, and I think as long as you're open-minded, you're going to find a fun build that does enough damage. It doesn't seem like they're really gatekeeping anything behind having to make certain specific meta builds. However, take that with a grain of salt, because I haven't even reached the end game yet. But overall, I am having a really good time playing the Acolyte. There's a lot to be had, and I haven't even really ventured into any of the other classes. So I know that there's 4 more classes to choose from. So there's at least another 120 hours just in building each character to the point where I've gotten the Acolyte. And that kind of brings me back around to the loot system and knowing full well that I'm gonna play other characters. And this is where Diablo 4 really missed the mark for me. Is I want to be able to find loot for my alternate characters no matter what character I'm playing. I want the loot drops to just be purely based off of the enemies that I'm killing. I don't want tailored loot. I don't want to just find rogue loot when I'm playing a rogue. I want to find loot for anything. That keeps the lottery exciting, and it makes you kind of take a step back and really look at some of the stuff that's dropping, and not just looking for a specific affix that drops on a particular item. And that was really one of my favorite parts about Diablo 2 was you would build a character whose job it was to just clean out mobs so that you could get the drops, so you could check areas for certain items that had higher drop rates in those areas. I don't know if certain areas have higher drop rates for certain things in this. I'm assuming the dungeons at the end are going to be my best bet, and then I'm sure there's some builds that are best for clearing out dungeons, and I'm sure there's builds that are good for tanking, and there's going to be your damage. So I will get there. I don't know exactly how it works right now, but I can say I'm having fun getting there. Now, it is an ARPG, so if you're playing online, obviously you're not going to be able to pause it. It does play great with a controller, and therefore it plays pretty good on the Steam Deck. Actually, here I will insert some footage from the Steam Deck, and this is the new feature now that the Steam Deck does, so I can pretty easily now upload some of my footage from the Steam Deck. So here's a clip for that. The downside to playing on the Steam Deck is that there is something going on. There's either a memory leak or some bug, but after a little while, the game completely crashes. It actually a few times has completely locked up my Steam Deck. I've had to hold the power button and turn it off and turn it back on. It happens after usually an hour and a half, 2 hours of gameplay. And searching through some forums, people are saying, yeah, the Steam Deck will run out of memory and then it will freeze and crash like that. And there's a couple workarounds that people have suggested, keeping an eye on your memory and restarting the game before it hits the max. There's also a third-party utility you can install, but I'm not messing with that. It should just run. There shouldn't be issues. It's a $35 game. I shouldn't have issues like that. So until they get that fixed and you see a communication from the developer saying that they fixed it, I wouldn't bother playing on the Steam Deck unless you're playing for really short times. But it's unfortunate because it really does run great. It slaps you in the face every once in a while. So I guess if you're okay with dealing with that, then sure. Overall, fun game. It's worth the money. If you get it on sale, even better, but you're going to get 35 hours out of it if you like building characters and killing monsters and collecting loot. It's well done. The story sucks, the voice acting sucks, and it's annoying to play on the Steam Deck, but it does run. For a while, that is. But yeah, that's it. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know if there's any cool, fun builds you think I'd like. Give me a comment. Let me know what you think it's worth playing. I'm sure there's a website out there that has a bunch of meta builds. But if you think there's a cool one from an alternate character, drop it in the comments, and I will check it out for sure. Thanks again. Take it easy.